Good morning, everyone. Well, at least it's morning for me. This is about 7 o'clock in the morning when I'm making this video. I had plans to make it on Wednesday night, but I had some visitors at my house and I had to put it off until this morning. I wanted to give you all a few tips, a few pointers on the program that I assigned. I'm hoping that you looked it over and have given it some thought before now. If you've just waited for the help, you kind of blew an opportunity because it's best if you try to figure your way through these, get some ideas, and then use the pointers that I give you. All right, let's go through this. I'm reading off of the sheet that I gave you, the paint job estimator. All right, I'm going to read it to you. Uh, you should probably have it and follow along, and I'll give you some tips along the way as I read it. A paint company has determined that for every 110 square feet of wall space, 1 gallon of paint and 8 hours of labor will be required. All right, this is a big stumbling block for this program. I've assigned this before, this 110 square feet, and it shouldn't be. So here I'm going to use simple numbers just to kind of give you a demonstration. You figure out that you want a one-room house and the square footage is 220 square feet of wall space. All right. The total square footage for this room is 220 square feet. All right. Right. There's 100. This calculation is 110 square feet of wall space, 1 gallon of paint, 8 hours of labor. So that 220 divided by 110 is 2. That means you're going to use 2 gallons of paint, right? And 16 hours of labor will be required. That's how you do the calculation. There's nothing special to this. So if you didn't get that, rewind this, listen to it again, right? 220 square feet is what you've got to paint, right? This calculation says 110 square feet. You divide that into it, you get an even 2. Then you multiply the 2 by the gallons of paint or gallon of paint and 8 hours of labor. You end up with 2 gallons of paint and 16 hours of labor. That's just an example to keep in your mind while you work your way through this. All right, reading on. The company charges $25 per hour for labor and $10 per room for supplies. All right. So you're going to need to find out how many hours of labor are needed and how many rooms. I mean, you're going to need the number of rooms to add this $10 per room for supplies. All right, now we get into the picky parts of the program. Write a program that calculates the total bill and outputs the code identical to below. All right, your program should have 3 functions with prototypes. All right. A void function with n equals 3 reference variables as parameters that prompts the users for room height, width, and length. All right, that's function number 1. And I'm going to talk to you about it in a second, but I'm reading this now. But that's just it. You've got a function that prompts the user for the height, width, and length of a room. You need the height for this too, because remember, each room has 4 walls. You've got to figure the square footage for each wall. All right, a function that prompts the user for paint price per gallon. That's a simple one. You just ask it, and it returns it. The price per gallon as a float. The third one is the big one. This is the one that does all the calculation, right? A function that returns the final price as a float. You're going to send it 5 things. You're going to send it square feet that's needed, and you do the calculation inside the program and send it the square feet. The coverage number, that 110 is important because remember, you're going to take the square footage and divide by 110. All right. Charge per hour, the price of paint, and the number of rooms. Those 5 things, which you will have in the program by the time you get to using this third and final function, you'll have all that information. You send it, and the program will do the calculation. I mean, this function will do the calculation for your program. All right. Um, the total, like I said in the instructions, the total can be calculated from these 5 numbers. All right. Turning our attention to the program I've got in front of you, I'm going to help you set this up. All right. Here's I think I need I've got IOmanip here because you're dealing with money and you got to use set precision. So you're going to need IOmanip. You may need more. I'm not real sure, but as a basic, here's the IO stream, IOmanip, and the using namespace, which you're going to need. All right. These are like almost cut and pasted straight off of my program. All right. You get the three functions, void, get room dimensions, right? With the 3 reference variable floats, right? You've got paint price, pretty typical when you deal with a contractor to paint your house. You're going to pick a color, it's going to be a price attached, and they're going to use that for the quote to paint your room or paint your house. Float price of job. This is where you send all the information you've collected in the program to a calculator, and it's going to calculate how much this job cost. All right. Like I said, these are cut and paste. You could use these straight into your program if you wanted to. So here's using comments. Here's was sort of my flow of the program. Ask user how many rooms needed. So you'll create a variable. It's going to be an int because number of rooms can't be 5.2 or anything like that. So it's going to be an int. Ask the user how many rooms needed. In the program, I cut and pasted the output of a program onto the Word document. You can see I posted 3. All right, I'm getting a bid for 3 rooms to get painted. All right. The next one is a loop calling get room dimensions. All right. Get room dimensions, it's going to ask the user to input the height, length, and width of a room. A room. From that, you can do your calculations as long as you've got all 3. Because remember, the height plays into the actual surface area of what's being painted. So they enter all 3, right? Well, first, say I've entered the number 3. A for loop is going to go from 1 to the number of 0 to the number of rooms. It's going to loop through 3 times, and each time it's going to ask the user for the dimensions. These are reference variables. Each time you enter them, all right, these get updated. All right, remember how reference variables work. You're calling, this is a function, it's being called down here, height, width, and length, right? Each time it gets updated in the program, but each time through the loop, go ahead and add them up and add them again. You'll have a total counter, right? You'll have like a square footage counter, square footage total, whatever you want to call it. And you'll take the 3 rooms, you'll do the math and add it to 0. The second time through, you'll add it to that first total. Third time through, you'll add it to the total again. So there's no need for an array or anything fancy. Just keep looping through and adding these numbers together, right? At the end of it, the float variables, the room, your variable square footage or whatever you named it, after you've been through it 3 times and adding the room square footage together, you'll have a total square footage, and that's what you need, right? So this is an important one, but it's not that complicated. For loop that loops the number of times that the user said, all right, to collect all the information on the 3 rooms. So at this point in the program, right here, all right, you will have got your square footage. All right. One more piece of information you need. You've got the number of rooms, you've got the square footage, you've got that calculator of 110. You're going to need the price of the paint. All right. You ask the user what the price of the paint is. For this job, I think I put down $50 a gallon. Right. Now, at this point, you've got all the information you need to send to this big function, the one that calculates the price. Send all the info to price of job. Let's look down. We'll go through these. First function, get room dimensions. That's just the reference variable where you've updated 3 times. You went through 3 times, got the height and length. Each time you update the square footage. All right. Second one, paint price. So that's a simple one. Just ask the user for the paint of the price. Now you know the price of the paint. Third one, this is the big one. All right. Price of the job. You're going to send it the square footage. All right. You've got the square footage you need. This coverage is that 110 number, all right? Because you're going to need that. You're going to take square footage, all right? So if square footage, just as an example, is 550, your coverage is 110. That means you're going to need 5 gallons of paint, all right? And 8 hours labor per 110 feet. You're going to need 40 hours of labor. Okay, that's why you need the 2 numbers. You need that 110, which is coverage, right? This charge is per room. So you know how many rooms, you've collected that data for how many rooms. It's 3 rooms. So it's going to be number of rooms times charge. So let's see, the charge is $10 per room. So it's going to be an extra $30. This is the price of the paint, all right? And this is the number of rooms. From those 5 numbers, you can do all the calculating you want. It's going to do all the math, all the magic here, and you're going to return the final bill, from which you'll output it from up in main. All right, that was my solution for the program. This program wasn't any torturous thing that I devised. This is one of the programming challenges at the end of the chapter. I try to switch them up from time to time, but I have assigned this before. All right. Now, this will not be due on Monday night or anything like that because I want to meet. You all can ask questions in person. All right. But please don't show up. Don't show up to class with a blank screen and say, I don't get it. I want to see at least some effort beforehand. All right. So give this a try, and I will see you all in class.